Welcome to Audiogyan with Kedar Nimkar, a podcast that documents insightful conversations with Indian designers, artists, musicians, writers, thinkers, and creatives of all types. Catch us on iTunes or visit audiogyan.com for more Gyan sessions. Here's your host, Kedar Nimkar.
This episode is brought to you by MUBI, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. Every day, MUBI premieres a new film, whether it's timeless classic, a cult favorite, or an acclaimed masterpiece. A movie you have been dying to see or one you have never heard of before. There's always something new to discover. Try MUBI free for 30 days at mubi.com/audiogan, which is mubi.com/audiogan for a whole month free of great cinema for free. And let's begin our today's episode. The concept of brand was once very simple. The word brand came from an ancient Norse word Brandr, meaning to burn. In 1950 AD, brand meant a burning piece of wood, and in 1300s, it meant a torch, which was still meaning a burning piece of wood used as a tool. Around the 1500s, it meant a marked burn on a cattle where farmers used to distinguish their cattle from the others. In 1800, mass production products like wine started to flourish. Sellers started to use the whole brand to imply leaving a mark on their crates. Products with better quality and high value naturally became known as high-end products. In 1870, it finally became possible to register a trademark, and Coca-Cola facilitated this, advertising their slogan, Coca-Cola revives and sustains. Why am I talking about brands? Today I have Karno Guhathakurta with us on Audiogyan. He's a creative director at Please See Agency, which has designed numerous brands. They have done brand building for Food Hall, Lazy Pay, Mami, and many more. We'll try and get some insights behind brand building and discuss Mami logo in the later half of the episode. So thanks, Karno, for giving your time, and it's a real pleasure to have you on Audiogyan.
Hi, Kedar. The pleasure is all mine, and thank you for having us and I on this session.
Yeah.
Let's hope it's a good one for everyone else who's going to be listening.
Yeah. And the basic premise is about brands, brand building, which I gave like a relatively long monologue for my episodes. But the idea was to just set some context and understand where the brands came from. But if you have any other insights, this is just one theory. There could be other theories as well. But
I actually thought what you said about the etymology, not the etymology, but how branding started via the cast iron brand that would be implanted or imprinted on cattle was actually how I started my very first presentation as a, let's say, someone who was interested in branding in at PC. It's my first agency that I worked in, and I also thought that the history of the name of the term was very interesting, and I just found it to be what I was trying to do is also tie it back in and draw parallels to how we consider branding right now. And what I thought was that branding was aggressive then, especially for the cattle, and whoever was probably holding that iron because it must have been hot. And branding still is aggressive right now, not only because of competition, but because of the fact that the idea of branding and design has sort of been, well, I wouldn't say a taboo in India, but no one really understood it. They just thought of it as, okay, it's pretty, it'll work, it is good aesthetic. But no one really understood the value of branding and design in the country. And I feel like it's the aggression to what I was referring to is in a good sense, because people value branding. People value what branding brings to whether it's a product, a company, a business, or even a person. So yeah, it was really, I think if I go back to the cattle, I would have not preferred that kind of a treatment, just because it's cruelty. But I feel in today's time, for branding to be aggressive, it's a good thing, because that means people are opening up to the idea, the notion of what this particular kind of education can bring to them or give to them and do for them.
No, but this we'll get into the more formal question, but just because of this small thread which you started, you're saying the aggressive part is from the companies, the products, the services to the agency, or from the agency to the potential customers and audience and viewers? Where is this aggressiveness you are referring to?
It's both actually.
Hmm.
Aggression comes from the fact that I am seeing a lot of other brands who may or may not be competition to me, but are doing exceedingly well in the way they present themselves, or the way they're talking, or how their market sales are constantly at a high. So the aggression, I feel, is very, let's say, cerebral.
Hmm.
It's a human thing to feel that sort of greed, or to feel as though, why should my brand not also achieve those numbers or statistics, or that goodwill. If I don't want to go for money so much, which is kind of a stupid thing in today's world.
Hmm.
But it is also about, why can't my brand earn that goodwill, that trust, that loyalty? So I mean aggression in a very positive way. So, and it's from both. It's from the agency towards the brands that they're working for, because they believe in those brands, and it's from the people who have, like, sort of initiated those brands.
Hmm.
So it's both ways.
Yeah, interesting, interesting. And one more, like this was in the formal questions as well.
Yeah.
Now this stamp or this whatever the small mark which was imprinted on these animals, like starting with the cattle, then with the horse and stuff. It was probably a symbol, right? So ignoring the cruelty part of it, it was just looking at the design part. It was still sort of a symbol. So like how what's your definition of brand? Like, is logo a brand? And we'll start with there, and then I have like few questions around it. So like, yeah, what's your definition of brand in general, and how has it evolved in the last 10-15 years of your work, or
Okay.
more maybe? Yeah.
So if you ask me what is branding or what is a brand, I would say, okay, I would say a brand is an entity.
Hmm.
And it could be a living entity, it could be an inanimate entity, it could be anything per se. You, Kedar, you are a brand, and you are also working on a brand, which is this podcast, Audiogyan,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So that to me is a brand. It's anything that is considered an entity, and the aspect of branding is when you give that entity a voice, when you give it a personality, when you nurture its growth, when you help it, uh, like, consider it like your first child,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And that to me is how I would think of branding. And I always start, I look at branding in two different aspects, one which is a more emotional connect, and the other one is a functional connect. And again, I will bring the anecdote of raising a child. I'm not a father, so I don't know, but as to how to do that. But branding is very similar in that sense. You start nurturing your brand in the ways that it should grow, which means you have to give it a voice, you have to give it a sense of purpose, you have to give it some life, you have to have it trained in certain fundamental values that it should grow with. And then the functional aspect is when you look at a brand as to what numbers am I going to achieve, what numbers do I want to target for the next 5 years. So all of this sort of culminates, not culminates, all of this is a part of brand building, where you start with what it is now, and then you have uh, the vision to imagine what it could be 5 years or 10 years hence.
Hmm. 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 So if you have to just formally state, not the classical definition, but what all theoretically or and theoretically is what you explained, but what all practical components are there? Like, how what does it comprise of? It's one is voice, then one is nurture is also sort of, we can loosely call it where and how it is placed. Is that correct?
Yeah,
And any other aspects?
there are actually many. So the first thing that I would, the first thing I would say is that you have to always answer this one very pertinent question. And I know your question is not really how I'm going to answer it, but because you said that said what do they comprise of, but in order to achieve that, you have to first always ask yourself as a brand custodian, why.
Hmm.
You have to always answer that first. If you get the why, the when, what, where, how will follow, and they'll follow very seamlessly. So, and it's very different for different people. So, I mean, I don't think I answered theoretically, because every brand has a different way of bringing, of a different sense of upbringing.
Hmm.
Um, for instance, a restaurant brand would have a different sense of upbringing versus an FMCG brand versus something else. They need different benchmarks and parameters that they need to look at, or let's say pillars that they need to establish and build it according to that. But the first thing always would be, what is the purpose? What is the essence? Where does the crux of the matter lie? If that is answered, you can easily do 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. But the first thing is answering, is 1 plus 1 equal to 2, or could it be 5?
Interesting. Interesting. And does it? I mean, this is one which I did with Ambi Parmeshwaram as well, and I asked him, like, is what is easy to brand? I mean, is it a product or a service? Because actually, we'll park this. We'll revisit this. So, what is the difference between brand and brand building then? I mean, are these two different things or?
I mean, brand is the, let's say, the noun, and branding is the verb.
Oh,
So, like, brand is the entity, branding would be how you bring that entity into life. How do you give it some, how do you breathe oxygen into it? So they are part and parcel. I mean, they're one of the same thing. It's just that branding is how you would treat it.
oh, is it? But so it can so happen that like I've just joined Jupiter and you
Yeah.
guys have done the logo. So how does it happen? Because now I have to use it effectively, right? So similarly, Food Hall mein, you guys did the logo also, and then you explained how to build and build the narrative around it,
Yes.
or it was like, can it happen that you give the brand and someone else is doing the brand building?
Sorry, I didn't get that question. What was
So
it?
you give the brand, as in you give the logo, you give the assets, you give the tone and voice and everything, and then there is some agency or some third person or some third entity which is taking that brand further into multiple manifestations or multiple mediums, and then they are actually building the brand as opposed to you. Does that happen, or is it?
I mean,
Uh,
that is a sad fact that it happens.
hmm,
Technically, if I mean, personally, if I were to build a brand, I would want to have thought through every minute of its existence. What would it do? How would it be speaking? Till the time that whoever the brand custodian on the client side is going to say, okay, I need to change the way I'm seeing things. And that happens. I mean, it does happen. It's not to say that it's right or wrong, but it could be a change of heart from the agency or the client who's saying, okay, I don't want my brand to be this way, and not because the agency has produced something that was against his wishes. But you never know how, like, so many things that we are going to have to be factored in. For instance, right now in this pandemic state, brands are currently redoing their way of thinking for the future, because no one's going to be able to predict it now. So yes, I may very well have a brand that someone else has, let's say, constructed, and by that I mean a logo and a color palette, but
hmm.
it need not be that that is the right way to communicate for the brand, or that's the only way to communicate for the brand.
Okay, okay. And so then, can brands be made
Going sorry,
without?
going back to Jupiter, because you mentioned it,
Huh?
um, there is a voice, there is a sense of purpose, there's a reason for why Jupiter is coming into its very own person, becoming its own person.
Hmm.
So I feel like if I were to take Jupiter forward, I would already have the kind of I would already have a lot of background, research, story, understanding, purpose for the brand. And how I take it forward is basically going to be an extension of that purpose.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can derail from that. I think the like, and again, this could be for any brand that comes to me that has already been designed for. I don't think if there is a strong idea, I would want to negate that. I would want to keep that in mind, because that's the core of the brand, and then see how I can drive it forward. So the idea would be the same, but the way you start communicating, explaining, because of the current times that we are in, because of the target audiences, because of the different channels that we have to communicate through, the tone of voice might change. A color here would possibly change, but the idea must remain the same, if that is strong.
Correct, correct, correct. Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, like the next question is related to that, but before that, we were discussing like also about like what's easy to brand, like a product or a service, because my experience has always been on the product side. I build products, so I understand the product marketing part of it, or how to position it, or how the tone of voice, or what sort of voice the brand should have, because the brand typically lands up in being a product. So, but you have dealt with both, right? You have worked with, say, like a Lazy Pay, which is a product, whereas the food hall is a product, but it's like much more. It's a sort of a service also, because
Yeah,
there are people who are coming in and going out, and it's a physical store. So,
yeah.
out of these different verticals of things which can be branded, which one is the simplest? Why? And any insights there from any example?
Okay, so not to sound funny, but
Hmm.
that's actually a very easy and simple answer for me.
Okay.
Um, I don't consider branding a product or a service oriented product easy. I think they both come with their own challenges, and they're all always going to be a different challenge, because no one product would ever be the same, or ever have the same, let's say, person who's constructed or thought of the product. So we have to always, like, sure, when you think of it in a functional sense, it has to abide by certain, let's say, markers, certain, let's say, like, for instance, a 1 year or a 2 year plan that we want to use as achievements or goals or destinations. But it's a challenge to do both, because and it's an exciting challenge. I'm not saying it's a difficult one. It's just you personally would want each of your brands to look distinct and have its own voice, and you would want each of your brands to be not one with many, but one apart from the many. Sorry, I don't speak in very I guess I'm also sort of hearing myself speak, and I know it's very philosophical, but that's honestly the way I look at branding. I don't think there is a point A to point B for anything, or if there is a point A to point B, it's always at a risk to to really say that is the destination point. I believe in giving every brand or every product or any person for that matter its own way of running its trajectory. um,
No,
I,
sorry to interrupt, but then I'll slightly rephrase. Maybe then I could be slightly coming with a different thought process. The
yeah,
question was mainly like TCS हो गया या uh, Tata Power is a service, right? Whereas
yeah,
iPhone is a product. I'm coming from there. Like it's a physical, real product, or it's sort of a bank. It's sort of a, like Ola is also a service, I would say. You know what I'm trying to get at is
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
there's physical product, and then there is service. And what takes longer? Like, is soap easy to sell, or is a commitment of LIC easy to sell?
What I would say is that the idea is not the well. We don't look at it as what would take longer to brand, because it's not about the quantity or quality of time. Sure, quality is important, but it's not about. Um, I actually have to think about your question a bit. I don't
No, you
think.
can take a pause and think about it. Matlab, I'll edit this part, not a problem. 31 minute.
Well, I mean, I just don't think the question is right. I don't think it's about the length of time, because you can create a brand within a span of a month or even 2 months, or if the challenge is that we have to figure something out in 2 weeks, there you go. You have to finish figure out the entire plan of a product or a service in 2 weeks. But these are more functional, not functional, but these are basically challenges that one is pitted against. But the real question to me, the real way of looking at how long it would take to brand is if we get the idea or the core thought right. If that is if that has been approved, confirmed, and thought through really well, then every type of branding would take the same amount of time.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Now,
And
if the deliverables for a restaurant versus an FMCG product are different in terms of numbers, that would take a bit more time. But once you have an idea set in stone and is perfect for that brand, everything else is going to be a cakewalk. So the time is taken only to figure that right idea.
no, but that is from a creative process. I'm saying from reaching the audience. So, like, suppose there's like something is made, something a campaign is cracked, right? And now I'm saying that the time taken to make a campaign is it depends on the agency, number of staff, the timeline, the pressure, the commitment, how good the idea is. But I'm saying once it's out in the public, once it's
Yeah.
out in the people's mind, uh, from there to register कि ठीक है चलो कर लो दुनिया मुट्ठी में जियो or whatever, Geo नहीं क्या Reliance, and then like there is this word spreading across right now for a brand to reach out to maximum people and resonating and having in the dining room. What is there a challenge for a product to reach first or a service to reach first? Actually, I'm struggling with the question, but I'll rephrase. So, can brands be made without advertising? And if so, if not, if someone has tried, any case study there? Is it making sense?
Yeah, it is making sense. Brands, yeah, I mean, you see a lot of local niche brands that don't advertise as much because that's their wish and policy, but they do fairly well, and they have a let's say a smaller but a very dense group of loyalists who believe in their work and will always purchase from them. And these are primarily independent brands, not brands backed up by another.
Marketing budget and whatever.
Correct.
Yeah.
So yes, brands have done well without advertising too much, but currently the way, like I said, branding is quite aggressive right now. Everyone wants to have that voice. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to. It's this new era of millennials that we're in, that everyone wants to be somebody. Everyone wants to speak out, speak up, have their own platform, which is why there are so many. I remember the time when I used to do things on YouTube, where I would just sing or like have conversations with my screen because I guess I'm weird like that. And then 5 years from now, 5 years from then, there were people getting platinum cards for being a YouTube sensation and prodigies. So it's just something that everyone likes to do. Everyone likes to have a vent, have a sounding board, have seek. I don't know if I answered your question, but
No. So in fact, yeah. These small brands which are like creating brands very instinctively rather than like a planned campaign or advertising or
yeah, and
marketing
that is
as such.
also possible.
Correct. And then what is at play in these sort of situation? Is it the quality of service, quality of product? Is it because it just resonated with a niche community? Like what is like? Do you have any insights
As
there?
in, what do you mean?
No. So these brands which have like a loyal following, which have like a community, which have a niche set of audience who are loyal to these brands. but
Yeah.
these brands necessarily are not creating like whatever the traditional marketing type stuff, or they are not even going and advertising big time. Still they have this niche following. So what is at play in these kind of situations?
Channel, mediums of communication.
Okay, okay, okay.
You don't have to pay Instagram to be on Instagram. You don't have to pay Twitter to be on Twitter unless you want to sort of associate yourself to be a thriving business and like have that sort of uh, role or designation about yourself. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even prior to Instagram and social media, there was and Facebook, there were blogs. There were people who used to write blogs and speak about their prowess in certain fields. So it's just you have to find the right channels of communication. Now, do most brands need to be on Instagram? Perhaps not. The kind of brands that you want, the kind of brands that you're building, the way it's marketed, the way people you will have a gathering of merry men and followers. Is that if you target the right type of, let's say, platforms to speak about yourself. For instance, I know Jupiter does a lot on LinkedIn, which is actually a great platform for Jupiter,
Mm-hmm.
because we're talking to the kind of audiences who are very modern, who are and who want to know more to better their idea or their notions of this product. And LinkedIn, though it is there, it is rendered for a specific purpose. I think the insight for LinkedIn, and this is just what I think, is that people are very inquisitive. They're very curious to know what else is going on, who is up there, because everyone's constantly looking for new things, right?
Yeah, correct.
So yeah, to me
Mm.
that is the reason.
Interesting, interesting. This is like a new venture which has to be dealt differently, especially after the Social Dilemma movie, which is out. It's yeah, yeah. Anyway, so changing tracks a bit, and I wanted to slightly deep dive into few of the brands which you have built, and you can pick up any like maybe food all. I'm particularly interested with Mami, but
Go
as
for it.
long as
Let's go with Mommy.
yeah, yeah. So, can you tell us like the process in detail, like right from the point of where you started the graphic work, or just general, like from the brief to whatever the final output is? If you can just share some milestones, insights, and any revelations which you had while doing it.
Well,
For
the
for ma-
brief.
for few people who don't know, like I'm sure like Audiogyan audience will definitely have know what is Mami, but if not, then it's a film festival which happens every year in Mumbai. It's Mumbai Academy of Moving Images,
Yes.
right? Yeah, moving images. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
So
moving.
Mami, yeah, it's a film festival which used to happen in one place only in Rabindranath Mandir, I think, like somewhere near Pula Deshpande Academy in Dadar. Now it happens across Bombay, in PVR, Andheri, Thane, and bunch of other places. So yeah, I mean, please see, and Karno were the people who designed the new Mami logo. So yeah, if you can tell us more about it.
Well, the brief was exactly what you said. We had to brand this baby. We had to, and like you asked before, Mami was not something that was brand new. It was always there. It was just something that uh, was related to films and I suppose whilst they enjoyed a lot of success for being that festival for everybody, it didn't garner a lot of attention amongst the youth.
Hmm.
And the trend also at the time, not a trend, but like what every I guess agency does or country does, is that they look at their youth for solutions after a point, because they're going to be the next people who are going to be running the country or whatever else. So we had to render Mami in a way that is also approachable to a younger crowd and to people who are interested in movies not from a certain segment of the population, but to any and everybody.
Hmm.
and everybody who has an interest in filmmaking, anybody who has an interest to watch films. We had to make it approachable and relatable to each and every Indian, right? So that was the sort of the brief. I don't remember in plain words what it was, but that was how we took the brief. And the other thing was that we had to sort of glorify, or at least bring Bombay or Mumbai in. I prefer calling it Bombay. I don't really understand Mumbai very well, associate with the city. But we had to make Bombay come alive more than it already is through this one festival. So the idea also started from there, that this has to be something that felicitates Mumbai. This has to be something that has Mumbai at the core. Not only owing to the name, but because this is where the film fraternities has sort of been recognized.
Working, yeah.
Though there are ample films and great films coming from all regional cinemas, other regions as well. Bollywood is considered more famous for its various reasons. So we had to do that. We had to brand this film festival, and also look at this film festival in relation to a Cannes, to a BIFF, to all other international Toronto, all other different film festivals that are happening out there, that where people of all ages are going just to watch, just to be a part of the movies, to be entertained, to see what other things that are going on, because it's of interest. So when we did start on MUBI, what we thought of is that how do we want people to feel? Because again, this is a service and a product at the same time. And what we wanted to understand is how do we want people to approach or resonate with the brand? And what we realized that this brand stands for any person who wants to be heard, who wants to have a voice, who wants to be seen, who wants to be respected for their craft, for their work. Because ultimately, MUBI is for those filmmakers and film enthusiasts and loyalists who don't have a platform, who, from the filmmaker's point of view, who want to share their film ideologies, who want to share their films. From the audience's point of view, who wants to see more than what the world is currently giving them. And a sad fact is that regional cinema is not prevalent, or in the sense it's not
mainstream.
It's not considered. It's not mainstream, and it doesn't have a good marketing kind of a setup. It's again for those very niche audiences. But these filmmakers of these niche films also want other members of the fraternity as well as the Indian audience to see their film, appreciate it, reject it, criticize it, because that's going to help them enable growth. So that's how we looked at MUBI, and thereby we came with the term of fishing for talent. Also owing to the fact that Bombay was one part of 7 islands, and the Kohlis were the original inhabitants of that area. So we wanted to tie in that story here as well. So it has some relevance and also is honest to this entire brand. So the idea of fishing for talent came about, and that's how the mark also, if you're seeing it right now, has come into being. So we also, while designing the mark, what we kept in mind was the fact that we wanted to look a bit more, have more of an Indian aesthetic. So we looked at the Devanagari scripts. We looked at a lot of vernacular scripts like Hindi, Bengali, even I think we also looked at some from the south. I forget which one, so I don't want to just say another name. And we saw what were certain commonalities over there, and do we want to bring out regional scripts also over here? Or do we want to play with the official language of India and see how that can be deconstructed and dissected to form something else? So the mark that you see 2 fish floating in, and one is towards let's say a fishing net as well as a pole or whatever are actually
Hmm.
the and badi choti. I think the badi.
Hmm.
So that's how this mark was eventually created from the idea. That's how we came. I mean, that's how it was made. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about this, but
Hmm.
we also wanted to the mark not to have such a serious look. We wanted to make it a little light-hearted, have that sort of a double entendre in the way it's being represented. We wanted people to be intrigued by the mark because it's something that most people possibly on first sight won't get. What is the
Hmm.
relevance? What is the meaning? But that's what we wanted to do. We wanted people to ask questions about the mark and therefore ask questions about Mami.
Wow, very beautiful, very beautiful. And then, yeah, was there any like? I mean, this backstory definitely helps to pitch the idea. But were there any iterations? Were there any discussions where, or did it evolve, or
Oh,
it was just like, yeah?
there were plenty of iterations. As in I mean, as a company, what we like is to enforce our creative freedom and do as much as we can, and to sort of see what are the options that work best with the idea. So
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
first we formulated the idea of fishing for talent, and like we stuck to it and said, okay, this makes sense. This has a lot of limbs to play with. This can have various extensions, and then see what are the different marks. So there was one mark. This was the main
Hmm.
mark that got selected, but there were other marks that also represented Bombay as a culture, as an emotion, and also as and obviously as a feeling. So there, yes, to answer your question, there were 3, 4 other iterations and visual routes that we had made for this brand. Eventually, this one got picked, and we were very ecstatic about it.
And what made you arrive at the logo, as in like the palette and the color, any insights there? Because it's yellow, right? Yellow on black or yellow on blue. So yellow seems to be sort of like a dominant color, yellow and black. So
Well,
is there a story behind that?
yellow is, I mean, traditionally, yellow is something that represents optimism, something bright, something new, a new day, a bright day, and also happiness or joy of being found or joy of being represented by an association as Mami. So we wanted that color to really pop for the city as well. I don't know if yellow is associated to Bombay. I'm not aware of that. But the way we looked at Bombay was that it always has possibilities. It has endless possibilities for anyone, and we wanted to rope in that seed thought of optimism also into the color palette. The blues have come from the fact because of the Arabian Sea that if one comes to Bombay, one can't not be at Marine Drive or Carter Road and just soak up the salt water, breeze, and just be
Hmm.
happy the fact that there's an ocean in our city.
Hmm.
So the blues, the 2 different blues, are representative of that. So yeah, so that's how so everything in terms of deriving a brand or a color palette has to start from the crux of the matter. And similarly for Mami, when we were thinking of how do we extend the brand, we looked at what does the how is the city represented, and what do we want to bring to the city. There's so much the city has to offer and has offered to the world, be it movies, be it architecture, be it the people, be it humility. So we had to bring all of that into one brand, and that's what you see in front of you now.
Hmm. Very interesting. The blue angle is definitely worth me to tweet as well. Uh, so, and do you think of, I mean, did you think of sub brands? Because I worked in ClearTrip before, a long time ago, and we had this ClearTrip, which was the main logo, and then you have like ClearTrip for business, ClearTrip for whatever, like hotels, and ClearTrip for uh, other sorts of things, right? So you have these sub brands always. So
Yeah.
the question is mainly, I initially thought that the blue is because of the geo, But
Oh no, so
uh, no, so there are two-part questions to this. One is like, did you think of any sub brands, and how does that process happen in Mami? Is there any sub brand? And then what sort of changes happened because Geo came in? Because Geo has done the same with Savan. Now, like they have like a sponsor for Mami as well.
yeah.
So did they like disrupt the form? I mean, not metaphorically, but in real form. Yeah.
I mean, this question could be could be taken to a different way, but I will answer in the way I understand it best. So we knew
Sure.
that there are certain sub brands that Mummy comes with, like there is a movie Mela, there's a half ticket, and there's one more as sub brands, and we looked at how we could take out elements from the logo itself and to represent that. Like half ticket, I don't know if it's changed or not, but it was one small fish and not both the fish over there, because it's about
Mm,
youngsters going there and all of that. To
mm,
answer your question about did an affiliation with Geo disrupt the logo? No, because I mean we weren't aware of it while designing for the brand, and that's something that we never really pay attention to in the sense, again, while creating, because we don't have to think of what is Geo's voice going to be over here. We have to first be true to what the brand is. And if there is going to be an affiliation or a sponsor or whoever that's going to come literally on top of the mark, we'll have to find the best placement for it and see how can it be married with our mark, yet have its individuality and not really overpower the main brand. And this is something I feel like most people think as though it's going to really harm the brand or harm their creativity. But again, what I would say to everyone is take it as a challenge, because these are going to be more realistic challenges that you will be faced with. And
correct.
do you cry at the end of it that your logo has been usurped or has been taken over by another conglomerate? No, you have to figure what is the best possibility for both parties. And that is what design also is. It is about problem solving, but through design, through creativity.
I think you nailed it absolutely correct, because I think this comes with maturity and exposure to wide variety of things, and then understanding that the challenges are and the constraints are taken positively to push the envelope of design and not really crib about yeah, yeah, see, yeah. Yeah, it
If you,
just
if you don't mind, if I could add something to what you said right now,
please, please.
you mentioned the constraints of the challenges of working with a constrained set of deliverables, or you mentioned something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I would like to say, and maybe you can edit this on, or if you'd like, but a lot of people don't understand that challenges, there are challenges in everything that one wait, let me just like say this properly, because this is important for
Hmm,
anyone who's going to sort of embark on their design careers, that
hmm,
it's not only challenging that they have a vast blank canvas to work on and figure out the entire trajectory or the birth or and the lifespan of a brand. It's equally challenging to figure out that if there is a small part that I have to work towards to enforcing or bringing this brand alive, that part is going to be as important to the main brand than than creating the brand itself.
hmm.
I'm saying both of them are at equal levels.
You mean to say the first step is equally important as every step?
Yes,
Hmm,
always.
hmm, beautiful.
The first step is crucial, because if you don't have the first step, you won't know what to do.
Hmm,
But not to say that the latter steps are going to be, let's say, not going to be challenging.
hmm, hmm. I think the first step has probably the maximum friction. That's why they uh, like very loosely call it like it is the important step. I think every step is important, but I think the maximum friction would be there. That's why we have this people saying about it. What do you
Yeah,
like?
I don't think I answered the question. Do you mind if I attempt it a second time?
Yes, please. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll go back to what you said about service and product.
Hmm.
Now, if let's say a service comes to you and says, okay, I want to design, I want you to create this brand for me. I have an idea. I want you to create this brand for me. That itself is a challenge because I have to really figure out how that service can be branded. What is the, like I said, the lifespan, the muscles, nervous system, the brain, everything. How do I make everything function properly? All the organs. But let's say an FMCG product comes to me, okay, and says, this is my challenge in a label space of 5 inches by 6 inches. I'm giving you, I have the constraints of showing everything within those dimensions. How are you going to make my brand work in that? That is another type of challenge. I'm not creating a brand through it, but I'm going to have to communicate the right points at the right placements to say this is going to work. Obviously, backed up by market research, competitor analysis, and all that. But these are also going to be, these are also hefty challenges for designers.
Correct, correct. Beautiful. I think this is like very, very nuanced, very interesting insight that you've pulled. Something which even I have to think about. Yeah. Cool. I think given the time, I have one last question. So with world where like the long tails are becoming brands themselves, which you briefly touch upon, the smaller communities are becoming sort of brands with these social media and other channels, and not necessarily spending heavily on marketing, advertising stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what is your like overall reading of how brands will evolve in the next 5 to 10 years, if you have given a thought about it?
So I won't really speak on the long tail strategy
Uh,
because yes, it will continue to exist for hopefully the next century. But
mhm.
what I will say is more contextual to the times that we're living in right now, and
Yeah.
because also over the last 10 years, people have been seeing like these emergences of different industries and sectors, which are a break away from the traditional way of thinking and working, right? Like you have a neobank versus a traditional bank that is going to come be the next thing. Digital is becoming a huge thing in the world right now, and everything is going to be digital. Hopefully, print won't be dead because I stand for print. But this pandemic actually has stirred and will continue to stir a shift in people's mindset of how they should think of the next 5 years for their brands. And I think the answer to that I mean, the answer won't really be definite right now. But what it will do actually is that they're going to have to think that brands are going to be more thoughtful. Brands are going to be more, going to have to be more meaningful to a particular person as to why they are valid.
Hmm. Hmm.
Seeing as it is, the future is not going to be written, and at least for no one to read, because no one will know that. So what brands will have to start doing is thinking of how can I sort of curtail my business model to make it more meaningful, thoughtful, empathetic, human. Because living at
Hmm.
home for the last, how many months has it been? 6, 8 months.
Yeah.
Everyone's vision of working, way of life, is is shifting. It like the home is being more important right now. So it might just be that next year we're going to be back in our offices and all that. But this year would have proved to be a marker for everyone in terms of how they should realize their business goals and models, because you'll never know what to expect next.
Correct. Correct. And to add to that, I mean, thoughtful as a word which you said about the brands being will think of being thoughtful. I think like a subset of that word is also honest, because I'm like once in one of the talks I've heard Zakir Khan, the comedian, talking about यार लोग हाथ में देख के वीडियो देखते हैं, छाती पे रख के लैपटॉप में लाइक कंटेंट देख रहे हैं. So they are very close, and you can't like actually bullshit around when you are such close. So being honest is also which is what a brand would strive for as well.
I would say you have to be honest no matter what. I mean, if you have a brand,
but traditionally brands have not been, right. I mean,
well, no,
बोलते हैं,
I would
वो
differ
conditions
from,
apply हर जगह है यार.
I would actually differ from that thought. I would say traditionally brands have always been honest. I feel it's also the way it's been marketed, and it's also the way people have. Well, it's to do with a lot of things. It's not just a brand's fault or the communicator's fault. It's also the fault of its audiences. We were a very close-minded nation prior to, I mean, maybe 20 years prior. We never thought of products, businesses like this that are doing so well right now. We were always, I guess, we weren't very exposed as a nation to where we could go with our creativity, with our productivity, with the talent that we have in the country. We always stuck to a very traditional sense of being because it worked and it was very safe.
That's interesting. Maybe I think I'll like we will continue that conversation in some of the next episode, and it's interesting to dwell into that aspect as well. Ki before 90s, what was the story of branding and how people used to perceive brands and stuff like that. But थोड़ा सा वो historical aspect हो जाएगा.
Yeah, you should definitely start with Amul. Amul is fantastic.
Okay, definitely, yeah. All right, I think this is a good note to end, and it was like really lovely talking to you. Some food for thought, some great insights, and yeah, thanks for being on the show.
No, thank you for having me, and again, best of luck.
Thanks. So, hope you enjoyed this show. MUBI India announced its arrival at MAMI last year. So that's why this MUBI thing. And now to tell you about a bit about MUBI, it's a film streaming service showcasing the best of Indian cinema on their MUBI India channel and classic international hits on MUBI World with a new film every day on each channel. This week, I would recommend watching Abhay Kumar's Placebo, Kamal KM's ID, and Ashim Aluwalia's Miss Lovely. So you can watch this and more great cinema free for the whole month at mubi.com/audiogyan. And that's it for today. Thanks. Once again, thanks, Karno.
Thank you. Bye.
And that's it from today's Gyan session. Catch us on iTunes, Saavn, Stitcher, or any podcasting app you use. Do rate us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for more Gyan on audiogyan.com. Till then, bye.